What's going on, Dragons? Happy Friday, and welcome to episode 19 of the ErCast, your weekly Friday Night Magic pre-show. I'm your co-host, Cory, and with me in the studio on Discord is our very own Magus of the Mic, Cole.
Yep. Tap me and discard your hand, and then you're going to draw 7 cards, Cory, because I'm hyped to be here. How's it going?
It's going great. Also, this week we have a special guest joining us from the MTG YouTube channel. We have the internet's Zera aficionado and co-host of the sudsiest gameplay series around, Good Clean Commander. Please join us in welcoming Ken.
Hi, hello, it's me, it's Ken. You mentioned episode 19. It's funny, I was once 19.
Wow, you're our first guest to have ever been 19.
Thank you.
Let's not throw that out there. That's a loaded thing for the.
Oh, I didn't want to take it there. Hi, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. See, I said it right that time. This time I said it right. So this week, you guys, we get a lot of questions, comments, and I think a lot of creators do, about how to enter the YouTube Magic-y space, and also, when you do so, how do you get started on your own gameplay series, since that seems to be an entry point for a lot of creators. Hey, cards on the table. Cole and I do not have a gameplay series, so we brought on someone who does, who could possibly give us a little insights.
Don't do it. It's a trap. They lure you in, and then next thing you know, no. Yeah. So in case you don't know who I am, I co-host a channel called MTG, spelled EMPTYG. And we have a.
Wait, you mean you're not from the actual MTG Wizards of the Coast official channel?
No affiliation.
Oh, shut it down.
Yeah, and we're done. Okay. Yeah, we have a little Commander gameplay series. It's called Good Clean Commander. It's been around for pretty much as long as the channel. It had started before I joined the channel, and then since then we've kind of had several iterations of it. We've kind of ping-ponged between voiceover, and then we did some like face cam in like live voice audio versions, and then we kind of moved back to the voiceover stuff because that seemed to work a bit better. But yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely a saturated market, so there's a lot of kind of figuring out what you do and kind of growing off of that, I would say.
Sure. So, I think that brings us to the first thing. So I mean, if someone were to want to get into this market because it's so saturated, I think for a lot of people, their first experience are like the command zone, game nights, extra turns, kind of. It's in your face as soon as you type in Magic in the YouTube search bar. Right. How would you suggest somebody kind of getting started into the space? Like, should they kind of expect going into recording their first episode, as it were?
Right. So I think, and this might, it's. I wish it was more of like let your true self shine through and they'll flock to you. But unfortunately, it's a little more formulaic than that, I think. I think a lot of it comes down to just understanding kind of, especially early on, and I think we're still kind of in this stage as well with our series, is really what you have to offer the viewer, the person who's going to click on and maybe watch your series. You kind of have to think with that in mind. So like, I think the first one that kind of comes is like, who are you playing as a commander, right? Because a lot of people lead with, I stumbled upon your channel because I saw X was being played and I wanted to see how the deck worked. And I think like our biggest example of that was, God, almost a year ago now. We did a game and I played Kibo, Uktabi Prince.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is by far I think it's still our best performing gameplay series, because it was a commander that was buzzworthy, but wasn't being done necessarily on every other channel. Because that's the other thing too that you have to keep in mind with this is, doing a gameplay series, you're gonna always kind of be behind as far as like, we have the command zones, we have the high production affiliated with Wizards channels filming their gameplay, like, God, I don't even know how many months in advance, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of finding that weird kind of balance of like, okay, what commanders are bringing something that maybe no one else has seen, but also is a commander that people get excited about. So I think that's really the first thing is you want to focus on is trying to find that line, I would say, between the two. Another thing I think is important is just trying to keep it all like clean and concise.
Mhm.
Um, and this is kind of a lesson, hard lesson we learned when we kind of tried to um, branch into more of the like actual like in-game audio and face cam stuff. Was it really the videos ended up being like 2 to 3 times longer, right? Because the voiceover video is very snappy. It's on to the
Sure.
next thing. It's scripted. Whereas these ones were a little more like organic. There was banter. There was kind of humor and jokes. And a lot of your audience, at least early on, are there going to be like they're there to see a commander get played, or they're there to see like, oh, it's kind of like they're there for a good time, not a long time, so to speak, as far
Mm.
as like attention and like
Yeah, yeah.
um so I think
Yeah,
those
I
are really
think
the two main things I would start off with, I think.
yeah, I mean, those are good points because, like you said, for Kibo, that's something where people are interested in it because obviously it's sort of like a lull kind of commander because of the lore and
It's the
everything.
meme.
But yeah, it's a meme, but
Right.
it's playable, and you're going to be one of a handful of channels that are running that. But if your goal is to go, well, you're running Atraxa, you're running Yuriko, I'm running the Dragon, you're running the Scarab God. I mean, there's 1,000 of those already out there that
Okay,
are
all right.
probably going to
Stop
be bigger
talking
channels.
smack about the Scarab God when I'm here in front of you, Corey. This is
Every
crazy.
every episode, we got to bring up the Scarab God and why
And
it's known
Atraxa.
as
Quite
the
frankly, that's
trash.
my deck too.
The cold tier list is known as like just the trash of game nights. Is that what it is?
Well,
uh,
I have a question for you, Ken. You were
yeah,
talking about in terms of like the making the clean and concise. Now, are you guys doing your own editing?
it's all in house. So the process goes right now, like we have a team of three. We have Ashley, who was the originator, kind of the MTG. Um, at least that's her name going into it.
Hmm.
Transitioning into the all
Mhm.
that, and then her partner Olive, and myself. It's kind of we kind of just have a group of three of us, and so from the like kind of going through the start to finish of the processes, at least kind of for these voiceover games and kind of the cadence we have now is we schedule a game. We usually try and pull people. We kind of have we're developing community with other content creators, other people who do similar magic stuff, and
Wait,
like,
wait, wait! You're developing a community because I seem to recall Cole and I never being on a single episode of Good Clean Commander.
have you joined our Discord yet?
That's besides the entire point.
Well, Good Clean Commander season 3 or 4, whatever our next season is, y'all will be on it. I don't remember what I can never remember what season we're on.
No,
What
no,
season
no,
it's on.
no! Don't backpedal. It's chiseled in stone now.
Yes, it is in audio history books. So,
One
anyways,
of us will be good, and one of us will be clean. But you can't pick which is which.
yeah, and then I'll be commander.
Yeah, yeah.
So we usually, we kind of scout out, we find our crew, our good, clean crew, and then we schedule the game out. And then, like, day of, it's, everyone gets their setup, cameras, spell table has changed the way people play Magic in like the best way possible. And then record the episode. And once that's done, we kind of take it into, okay, so we usually start, the first thing is we'll write the script for it. And that and the edit like are both like the long tedious parts is
Mhm.
you sit down and you go play by play and you type everything out just like turn after turn of all the actions. And it's kind of nice, like it can be long because it's very, especially when you start getting like the intricate like stack stuff. And
Mhm.
but
All the
also it's
iterations.
been a very good way to kind of mentally break that stuff down when you're playing
Sure.
just like casually. um So we'll sit down, we'll write out the script. Usually, like one of us will take the script and then get all filled out. And then, kind of while that's happening, the editing is getting done. So it's just cleaning. Actually, no, that's a lie. The editing doesn't get done yet because before that we have to do the script voiceover. So then we're starting now that I'm a full-time member. We're gonna kind of start ping-ponging who's doing which episode, so it's not just all Ashley. We tried to like both do one in one episode, and that's just kind of like adds 4 extra steps. So we're just gonna kind of like bounce in between.
Yeah, just to sorry, not to cut you off real quick, but just to
Yeah.
clarify for anyone who's listening, when Ken's saying you guys write the script, he's not saying the game is scripted, but just if you guys aren't into editing at all, what he's saying is they write a script out of what cards appear on which turn order and stuff like that, so when they go to editing, they know what to put up on the screen.
That is not what I'm saying. No, I'm kidding.
Whew.
Yeah, that's it. We're
It is
just going
scripted.
play.
Oh god.
It's just going play by play and documenting in words like what's
Right.
happening.
What
And
happened?
this is just a process. I think for any voiceover, it's just that's how you get like the when you're listening back to it, it's very like clean and fast. It's like so and so and taps, draws, plays
Sure.
this happens, and it's just because it's all pre-written out because we like
Mhm.
go play by play. We'll play pause through the gameplay footage. So once you get that, we get the voiceover done, then it goes into the editing, and that's when you're just cutting down the footage and kind of lining it up with the voiceover and getting it all looking kind of presentable and ready. And then I think we kind of ship it. Ashley's partner Olive is the one that does like all the thumbnails and a lot of the assets. So it usually gets
Mhm.
kind of sent through her hands, and then from there it gets scheduled to be posted. And
So
like we just, as I
how
mentioned, we
long
just switched. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, how long, if you had to estimate from conception to posting, how long do you think a average episode would take?
I
Assuming all schedules being equal and everyone's available whenever.
Yeah, I would say probably, let's see, the script usually takes like, I would say like 2.5 times longer. So let's say it's an hour long game,
Mhm.
which they rarely
Two
are.
and a half
Usually
hours
it's
on a
like
script.
yeah, it's usually like a 2 hour game. But let's say it's an hour long game, 2.5, 3 hours on the script, kind of depending. Again, it comes down to like a lot of the interactions and kind of if it was a high interaction
Mhm.
game, then it'll take longer. If it's more straightforward, it'll take less. But like let's say like 2.5, 3 hours for the script. I think that sounds about right. I'm also like slower at it, so usually it takes me a little bit longer. And then editing can take like probably like 4, 5, 6 hours.
Mhm.
Again, depending on who's editing, I'm still a bit slow with editing.
Well, hey, I
Yeah, and I
gotta
think
say, on your editing, it's extremely impressive. And personally, when I watched you made it. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. But you made a video series on the Ixalan creature types, and you had a
Yes.
dinosaur video that I was
Yep.
actually shook with how good the editing was, and like
this is
it was
where
so fun to watch visually. And you also made some really good points. But that quality follows you through all of your videos. And okay, and then I do have one other point.
Yep.
Was it script? I mean, was Biblo scripted a million times in that one video? Ashley pronounces Bilbo as Biblo about
I
400 times, and you preface it with a little preview to talk about it. But I just like I was tickled that whole episode.
Can I be honest and give you the honest story about it? I like an hour after the game or something was posted, or not posted, sorry, an hour after the game was recorded. I caught her because she was talking about it a few times. And I was like, Ashley, just to give you a heads up, it's Bilbo Baggins. And she's like, oh, what have I
yeah,
been
yeah.
saying? You're saying
Biblo.
Biblo. And she's like, oh, right. Okay, thank you. I
But you
guess
play it off so
Olive
well.
also approached her and said, Ashley, it's Bilbo Baggins, not Biblo. And Ashley's like, oh, yes. Oh, God, sorry, I'm right. And then come time that the the voiceover and everything's done, she's like, I said Biblo. I'm like, oh no, how are we gonna course correct this now? This is Lord of the Rings. So
No,
we
you're
like
good. You're good.
we prefaced it at the start of the video. It ended up just kind of being a fun thing. It's kind of been like something we've been able to laugh at
Mhm.
like here and there ever since. But No, that was not scripted or staged. That was earnest. But
No,
it
no,
made for fun moments.
it's like a magician where, if you make a mistake and the trick still happens, then it was completely scripted and planned.
Right. Yeah. It it's funny. There are a couple name things that we always get comments on, but it's all in
Hmm.
fun. And for the excellent thing, I like greatly appreciate that. That's kind of I've been doing editing like in the Good Clean Commander stuff, like very minimal as far as like I mostly like cutting down footage and stuff and like
Mhm.
um but so this kind of this series which is still ongoing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Uh it was really just like I was like, okay, what can I do? And it was all learning as I went. Every little detail and like flourish I put in there, I had just figured out like as I did it, or like if it was like
Like one
something
Google
I
search
need.
ago.
Yeah, and it was a lot of like okay, like kind of understanding. Okay, this is how this works. So like it was kind of like felt like a bit of like a playground to be like, okay, how can I like, what can I do to kind of visually make this because
Mhm.
it's mostly an audio thing and it's it's showing cards, it's showing like magic artwork. So it's like how can I like have it visually interesting as well. So I greatly appreciate that. It's like the feedback I got from that episode like really got me excited and motivated to move on to the next one, which is why it's taking me like an additional 2 weeks for that one to come out. No, it's
For
because
perfection.
I'm in school and so it's the end of the semester, right? So it's like nonstop. So I just kind of have to get this big chunk of stuff done. But the next
Mhm.
one I'm doing is the vampires, and oh my god, I'm like partway about like halfway through the script of it, and like I really leaned dinosaurs. It's more like here's a creature type that didn't exist really. They retconned it to be a new creature type in Ixalan.
I do have
So
a
it was
small comment on that. You talk
what?
about the
Oh,
lizards and you name 3 lizards and they're great. They're great, pre-dinosaur creatures, but you don't
mhm.
talk about regal behemoth. I think the best lizard that got changed into a dinosaur. If you're the monarch, he doubles your mana. He
I
makes your
did
lands.
mention Regal. I mentioned it in conspiracy. I just didn't mention it that it
Yeah,
was a
learn to
lizard that
listen,
got
Cole. He
retconned.
mentioned it.
Well, okay.
I did
Well,
acknowledge
Scrub the
Regal Behemoth.
episode.
just not
Yeah,
in that
a
initial. You're like,
timestamp. Right.
timestamp it,
um,
timestamp it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so the dinosaurs was very much like, okay, this is like it's a typal plane, so we're really gonna lean into that. So we have these dinosaurs. But the vampires is like by the time I got to Ixalan, we were like, oh, we've been new. Like vampires have been
Mhm.
like integral. So I was like, okay, well, what can I talk about? I can be like Edgar Markov. It's the best vampire. It does this. But I like so for that one, I'm kind of leaning more into like the lore of it and kind of giving little tidbits of like interesting things leading into it. Where was vampires first seen? Kind of what did the color identity look like at the beginning? How has it shifted? Kind of what characteristics did you see? What theming did you see? How did these vampires play into the planes that they're on? Like
Mhm.
little tidbit fun fact is Edgar Markov like was the one that started the vampire uh like I would say royalty, but the
The
vampires on
order.
Ixalan, because Edgar Markov was a alchemist who was searching for a cure to like cure the famine that was like plaguing his community and his people, and like
Mhm.
through this weird, dark, twisted blood rituals, they like essentially converted and created this vampirism, and like that's how they resolved it. They like people fed on blood, and so like this person who's like this like overly powerful busted card, but this character like was just some like alchemist dude who like became this like vampire, and like now is this whole like you have houses and like you have the Falconrath, you have the Markov, and it's just like I thought it was super interesting where it's like, whoa, wait, so vampires weren't always a thing on Ixalan. Like they had a start date and this was at this moment. So stuff like that I think is
So,
super cool.
you know what we do now, right, Cole? Is we clip this portion of the episode out, and then we upload it separately, and we pre-scoop him on his own video.
Or just take that concept and just like do it yourself, and then that way like you can be like, no, we just came up with that on our own, we never.
And the voice sounds just like you. It's weird.
Mhm. Right. So yeah, so
Um,
I'm very excited about like the series going forward, and like the plan is to finish it out throughout the rest of the calendar
mhm,
year.
and have it all ready by Fallout.
No, have
Wow.
it all ready by end of year because we need to start working on the next stuff.
That's true. So yeah, I think you brought up a good point and all that though, which is editing, because if you're gonna make an hour long or even a 2 hour long game, because you can't really control that aspect of it. I mean, you have to realize that editing, if you're new to it, it's gonna take longer, and if you're even a professional editor or you're somebody who does it, it's not gonna take you an hour. It's gonna take you well over that. I
Right.
mean, I've edited I don't know how many videos between Magic and back in the day doing Pokemon stuff, and a 10-minute video is like a hour and a half, 2 hour long edit, depending on how much you really need to throw into it. So factor that into your time too.
Um,
Right.
I kind of have a follow up to that. You were talking about how you're in school and pursuing a degree in, I believe, design or interior design.
Yep. Correct.
And so, how do you find the time to, or how do you like balance creating content with, obviously like making the gameplay, like filming it, and your school and your life and your relationships and all that? How do you juggle
You have done.
I don't sleep. No.
it?
It's a very very tight juggle, and this is kind of where it's like I'm kind of going through, and I say I've kind of got past the eye of the storm where like everything's kind of coming to a head as far as like, okay, I'm on the channel way more. I have my own solo series. We're keeping up with the Good Clean Commander stuff, and then there's the school. Final projects. I teach other students Revit in school, so like I have hours in that, and it's a fine balance, right? Like I think a big part of it, and like big shout out goes to like my co-host Ashley, who like gets it and is able to like, oh, you know um we need to film this and this, like we need to film we have a little mini series that's called the mop up, where we kind of just pick one topic related to whatever recent game that came out, and we just kind of discuss that topic for like 20 minutes. And then we have to film intros, outros, and all this kind of stuff. So like having a co-host who like is super understanding and flexible, and is kind of like, oh,
Mhm.
if you need to like step
It's
back,
like
let me know, we're good. Um, so that's a big part of it. Another one
I
is just like, oh,
I
go ahead.
envy you, by the way, because I think yes, having a very flexible, kind, and caring co-host is something you should have. So one day I hope that I'm there as well. But
Cut his
alas, you have to
mic. Cut his mic.
trudge.
um, yeah, so it is a tight balance, and sometimes like it leads to like, oh my god, I am up until 1 o'clock
Mm,
working
mm,
on
Hmm.
things, but also like, you just have to have your priorities in mind and like stick to those priorities, right? And you kind of have to have the hierarchy of like the hierarchy of needs, but like hierarchy of like what needs to be done. So like,
mhm.
it's the school like comes first, right? I'm like, I need to get this done.
Sure.
I need to move on. So that's kind of, and then the gameplay stuff kind of follows behind that, and then like, you know ancillary
And
stuff can fall kind of
eating.
behind that. Sleeping,
Yeah, yeah. All
quality
this
time with your
nonsense.
loved ones.
Ugh.
um so yeah, it's a fine balance, and like sometimes you just kind of have to keep to your priorities, and also like keep the drive and the excitement. Like I said, the feedback from that one video had me like wanting to
Mhm.
like put my school, my projects, my CAD stuff aside, and just work on the script. But like I know that this stuff has a deadline sooner, and like we can put off a video. I can wait 2 more weeks to put something out. So like you just have to make sure you understand your priorities, I guess, is the main thing, and just sticking to that, and keeping the self discipline is really the
Yeah.
big thing too.
I on top of that too, I would even say learning what patterns work best for you. So, like for example, I have to do very minimal editing for the podcast, but I do have to do some editing and rendering and stuff like that.
Right.
But while this is rendering out, that's when I spend time working on thumbnails or I spend time working on other things
Hmm.
for this. and that works
Right.
for me. Now, for other people, you might just be one of those people who are like, "Hey, I have to record, then I have to render, then I have to upload, then in like a very straight order in order to make it make sense in your mind." So, try different things and also figure out a pattern that works best for you. But there is
Yeah.
one thing you brought up that I think I do want to talk about and maybe dig in your thoughts on a little more.
Sure.
So, on the YouTube side of things, you talked about, hey, you spent a long time editing this video, getting it uploaded, and then getting that feedback was a big, boost for you rolling into the next one.
Yep.
When it comes to gameplay, there seems to be like two different schools of outlet for it. One is YouTube, which seems to be a very like more time consuming, more polished product, more production has to be thrown into it editing wise. And the other one is sort of live streaming on Twitch.
Yep.
Um, so my question for you is when you look at those two, you're getting two different types of feedback, right? On YouTube, you're getting more delayed because you're putting your video out, people are viewing it, commenting it, whereas on Twitch, you're getting more of that instantaneous kind of live reaction.
Yep. It's I they feel like two very different things to me in a way, which is kind of interesting.
Mhm,
Like I like video live stream because it's kind of like, I mean, it's live. It's kind of in the moment. It feels a little more performative, I guess, in a way, because you have people there. You're not just capturing the
mhm.
gameplay. You're not capturing
Mhm.
the
You're getting the
the
personalities.
interactions. Yeah, you're kind of getting the um the nuance and like the personality in it. And I think they're both very different. I think live streaming in some aspects can be more difficult than YouTube because you're really trying to like hold that retention while
Mhm.
playing. Whereas, when you're recording with YouTube, you're able to like focus, be in the game, kind of, you know, be fully attentive to the game, present there. And like with live stream, it's a lot more, it's balanced. You have to be present in the game, but you also have to be present to your players, and you have to be present to the people watching.
Chat and mhm.
So I think they're both, and also like live stream is, and there's VODs obviously, but I feel like live stream is about being in the moment and like spending the time then. Whereas like when you do YouTube, it's kind of like, oh, like this is like the catalog I want to look back on, and like, you know,
Right,
it's different.
rewatchability and stuff like that.
Right, and like, don't get me wrong, like you can go back and watch all kinds of live streams, and sometimes those are great because you're capturing that like energy, and like you're able to rewatch it again. But they're different. We've kind of played about like maybe doing some fun like special event live stream stuff, but it's like a
Mhm.
whole other beast.
Now, do you think, like, when you look at those, obviously live stream is more performative because you're juggling not only keeping track of your triggers and everything else, but also, like you said, interacting with the chat and guests and stuff like that. Do you think it might because this is an honest question. Do you think that's also kind of restricts maybe creativity a little bit? Because you have to be able to do something right there on camera. Whereas when you look at like a good clean commander, you can do voiceovers and stuff like that that you can't necessarily kind of backtrack and do in the moment.
Yeah, it's hmm. Because like my point of view is like for live stream is I've always just been a guest. So like you
Sure.
know, I'm not worried so much about like the like the production side, or I'm just like I'm here. I want to like
To be the
be
best guest.
I want to be I want to be my best self. I don't need to be the best player. I don't need to win. I never go into them like being like I need to win this game. It's about like I want to like share, who I am, share what I build, kind of, and have fun. And I think I don't know if y'all experience this. Um, God, I'm really turning into like a Southern U.S.er, as I say y'all. I'm from Canada, by the way. This is how we talk. Um,
We're in Florida. You can be as southern as you want.
right. So I don't know if you guys experience this, but like being on a lot of live streams is I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. Um,
Mhm.
kind of like why am I here, like who am I, especially the pre like joining the channel as a like full co-host. I didn't have any like personal stuff to like put my stamp on necessarily yet, and it just kind of like I've got to like play on like Kuro has
Mhm.
a live stream. I've been on oh god. I've just been on these channels that, are much bigger, and but like they've had me on, and it feels sweet, and like I super appreciate it. But like there's a certain level of like, why am I here? Right. And I think that's something that we all kind of have to come to terms with. Like Ashley feels the exact same way a lot of the time. It's kind of like being able to get past the like, I'm nobody. Like I shouldn't be taking up a spot here. Nobody cares like when they ask where to find you. But like getting past that and kind of, you know, learning that no, I have a right at the table, and like I have something offer people, and like that's okay. I don't have to like have this weird like imposter syndrome guilt of like taking up space in the community. But I don't, that could
No,
be a very like niche thing, but it's
no, no,
definitely
no.
something I've kind of experienced.
I think everybody that has created anything, whether that's magic or any of these other things, kind of suffers through that a little bit. Like whether you're a musician, classical artist, you're making magic content. Like 'cause I've definitely had stuff like that too. Where I remember the first live stream I ever got on was with John at the Chaotic Commander.
Hmm.
Now, John, I
Good
actually have
people.
known for about 5, 6 years now, before
Oh
way
wow.
before Magic, because we actually started doing Pokemon content at the same time and connected through that community. Then we
Okay.
stopped making content, and then separately both decided to start making Magic content at the same time for some reason.
Right.
But first time I was on his stream, I was playing no, I was playing a Zuri, like an Azuri Claw Progress deck.
Yep.
And then I had someone request to play me with that deck because they happened to be in the stream, they saw it, they wanted to see me use the deck, and I was like, to me, it's one of the decks I rarely pull out that I would not associate as like my deck, quote unquote,
Right.
but for whatever reason, that was like, oh, I'm playing you and you have to be that deck because that's what I associate with you. You know?
I always take that as a compliment. Like,
Mhm,
for a while I felt like I was very much solely associated with Kibo. I was the guy with the
mhm,
Kibo deck, but it's fun. I think deck building, MTG content creating, is like sometimes finding your essence, or kind of what uniqueness you bring to it, can be like a little difficult and take some time to kind of finesse that out. So anytime somebody like can look at you and be like, you have that one deck, um like I associate this deck with you now. Like that's such a big compliment to me, because it just makes it like, okay, there's something, there's some combination of me, my deck building, my personality, and the way this deck is played, like they kind of
mhm.
harmonize together. So like that's a big compliment to me, I think.
Now, do you build your decks with consideration for how they will perform, in content format? Like if they'll be fun to play against, if they'll provide, good, exciting gameplay. It's not maybe too linear.
Uh, I choose my commanders quite often based on that, and actually, it depends. Sometimes we'll do like a theme, or we'll try and pick something specifically from a set, and then I'll kind of think in that lens. But honestly, for the most part, deck building is my favorite part of Magic. Like I love playing Magic, so like that says
Mhm,
something. So for me, the deck building is a lot of like, what gets me excited, what kind of gets the juices flowing, what gets me like opening up my phone and sitting there and just scrolling through cards, and kind of playing around with that. And I think the excitement you feel when you like have a new deck, that excitement kind of shows through when you go to record and you get to play the deck and kind of like show off what it does. um, so I have picked decks for episodes, like based on like I think this deck will do good in an episode, or I want to show off the potential of this deck. But also a lot of it is just like, this brings me joy, so me playing this will exude joy, I
mhm.
guess.
I think for me, I mean, Cole, you probably had this too because most of the games we've played for content pretty much have been like spell table.
Hmm.
I've definitely picked decks that are more or I shouldn't say I picked decks, but I've steered away from decks that don't necessarily work on spell table, like
Right.
stealing and theft based things, because in a in person pod you could move that card around. On spell table, it looks god awful for content.
Though I will admit, kind of one thing, and I've always had that mindset, and I've always avoided that. I had a pirate deck, and I took it apart because I'm like, this will never work on spell table. And now I'm building it, like I'm slowly working on like a Don Andres, like steal your stuff to the max. And like I would say the big thing, and I think actually almost turns it from a negative to a positive, is being able to like, and like not sponsored, obviously, but like infinite
Unless
tokens
they
and
want
being
to
able to,
sponsor us. Yeah.
well, of course. No,
Yeah.
sponsor us. Sponsor. No, I'm kidding. Sponsor
Shout
all of
out to
us.
Megan at Affinitokens.
Yeah, it's being able to like have fun with that and be able to. People love seeing your silly, stupid, bad art, and like in live streams, it's always fun. It always gets a good laugh, even in like videos, and even playing like on spell table with people. And somebody pulls out the thing and you're watching them draw their like, it just adds some fun. So I think it almost like overcorrects in a way that it goes from like being like, oh no, that's such a no to being like, okay, here I am drawing like somebody else's like creature and like just having silly fun with it. So
Yeah, the reason I think it's a no-no for me is because then I have to remember the text on every card I've stolen, and
yeah, so
that can be a weakness for me, especially if it's like newer cards.
right, and spell table's great for that because we are able to like click and like kind of keep that log to the side.
No,
I
no,
feel
you
bad for
click and you just see planes. They're all planes on spell table.
you need a better spell table setup. Except I feel bad for Ashley because obviously she's recording like through OBS and like recording the thing, so she cannot click on cards because then
Mm,
it pops up and it screws up the whole window and stuff. So
you're
she
right.
usually has to kind of play a little like, what's that again? But for me who doesn't have to deal with that responsibility, like you just like keep a little log of all the cards you've stolen on the sidebar so you can.
You do that on a separate Infinitoken, is what you do.
Right, or you get a second monitor and then you put all the cards on that monitor.
Sure, sure. You
Either
should
way.
have like 5 monitors, 4 cameras, all for your one spell table setup.
Right.
Like, you should look like you work for the NSA in order to just play spell table at any given time.
Magic for everyone everywhere? No. Magic for people
Yeah.
with 5 plus monitors only.
hmm Um. So that's the next thing. Okay, so if we look at decks and deck selection, does that extend beyond that? Because you also have to select guests, right? So how do you guys go about picking your guests? I mean, you don't necessarily have to say, "Hey, I've banned X, Y, and Z person from showing up," but do you have certain criteria like, "Hey, I know this set's on the horizon, and maybe in Ixalan, oh, this person's known for playing dinosaurs," or you just kind of see who's available?
Yes and no. So the way we're formatting, we've kind of switched. Like I mentioned, we're kind of switching into doing in seasons, which just makes for like it's kind of like batch content now. So like
Mhm.
we batch film, then we can batch edit and stuff. But like we have a bit of a delay to like give us kind of that breathing room we need. So like we're posting our current season. We've got like a couple games left to post, or one more game and like a bonus game. Like those games were filmed like in the summer. So like we're unfortunately not really able to fully keep up super up to date with things. We kind of have the odd fringe thing where we did that Doctor Who precon with a bunch of like super cool content creators. Um, so that was fun, and that was kind of like a expedited that one to kind of get it out when it was still more relevant. But
Mhm.
we actually we network and we kind of get to know people through these things, and we've made some like friends that like if we've been on someone else's stream, if they've been on for something else,
Yeah, make
that
those connections.
and then we actually the kind of the format we do is we just will post out like when we're ready to film some episodes, we just have a Google Doc, my name, Ashley's name, our decks, and we just leave it kind of out there in the ether, and we let first come first serve whoever wants it. We've also developed like this amazing, and I say this community has been developed even before I joined.
No, no,
We
take
kind of
credit.
call
Take whatever shine you want.
but we have this good clean. It's the good clean commander crew, and it's we have Aaron, we have Natasha, we have all these kind of channel regulars who are like all friends of Ashley and like helped kind of help early on, and they've just been like this great group of people to play with. So like, we always have them in the games, like one of them here or both of them, or like so we always have a group of people. We always have a good community of people to kind of come in, and like some people will come in and be like, "Hey, I want to play," and we'll throw their name in the slot. So it's really a lot more organic than I think most people would think. We're not like scouting or like
Hmm.
cold calling people. It's very much like, "Hey, who's around? We have these dates. Who's interested?" And like people, um, you know, will say if they're
Yeah,
interested or
which
not.
I think is something you definitely see a lot more maybe on the Twitch side of things, because I feel like a lot of, at least the big name, like game nights and stuff, like the big name YouTube stuff, they obviously have a more rigid schedule because they have so many sponsors lined up. But if you're getting started with your own, gameplay series or something like that, like I think you're fine just lassoing up some friends.
Find people you enjoy playing with and um, who you have fun with, because that, even if in a voiceover game, that it'll shine, like it'll, that aspect of it, because it's just, you know
There's more banter.
right, and you enjoy your time more, and and the end result always ends up being more exciting, I would say. So yeah, you don't need to be going out there and finding, scouting people to play. Like, I'm sure if you're into Magic, you have a community, or you're like working towards like finding people, just like play with them, because like at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
I
it's
think
about having fun.
Yeah, I think, and this is probably something you could speak to, but I actually saw this pop up on Twitter the other day, and there was somebody asking. I don't remember. Don't ask me what their name was because I have no idea. But they were asking how approachable you would say other Magic content creators were, and I think generally they're pretty approachable. I mean, maybe you're not gonna launch your YouTube channel tomorrow and then be on game nights 24 hours later. But I think at least like the base level creators are fairly approachable as long as you're doing it respectfully and you're, showing common interest with them.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know approachable, like it's so different in different contexts versus like coming up and
Sure.
like greeting them in person versus like engaging or interacting with them online. um I have been quite impressed and like seeing how the community is very much like, we're all here to play Magic because we love Magic, and like that's got me really excited about it. um very few like kind of uh negative interactions with anyone,
Mm.
really. It's very much been like, um people. And like the other thing too, kind of going back to the, when you're guessing on other people's streams, you're always like, oh my god, I'm taking up space, they're like doing this for me out of pity. Or, not out of pity, but like,
I've had that. I know
exaggerated
what
that.
you're talking about. Yeah,
But
yeah.
like also, they so much appreciate having a community, having people to come on, taking the time, and like, so it's not like they're, you think, oh my god, they're doing me such a favor for this, but it's a mutually beneficial thing, right? Like, if you're giving your best to this person, then they're gonna give their best back to you,
Yeah.
I think.
But I think I know what you're talking about because there's definitely like a surrealness to it because I've sat down at pods on other people's streams, and I'm not a person that's like really tracking like, oh, that's a 1 million subscriber person, that's 1,000 subscriber person, but you're generally aware of like who's a bigger name out there.
Oh yeah.
And
uh
I've definitely sat down at pods where I'm like, hmm, I've just I'm on episode 19 of my podcast, and they're got 20,000 subscribers. Why am I here?
yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I will sell my I'll sell a kidney to be able to like hang out and be friends with Rachel Weeks, because she is just the queen, period.
best
uh
best friend Rachel Weeks. I mean, we don't know her, but we'll throw it out there now. We'll kind of like manifest it here.
Right. She's my MTG idol. But yeah, it's it's such a fun, cool community. Because I mean, you look at like the game nights crew is rocking with like Post Malone for like
Mhm.
it's such a weird like it's such a I feel like to an extent like Magic is such a and it's not niche, but it's such a like a unique thing that like that kind of brings people together in weird ways. And we're all just like at the end of the day too, we're all just here to play Magic. So it's kind of like you know it feels a
So
little more even in some senses.
right, so, like, I'll give you a good, like, little side story on that. So, at the last Command Fest we had in Orlando back in October, I wanna say yeah, like,
Yes,
mid-October, something like
October.
that.
Yep.
So, Joe Cherries was there, who, used to be, like, nitpicking nerds, and now he's off doing his own thing. Now, Joe is somebody I've talked to before many times online, we DM each other, he's, like, a great asset if I have questions, stuff like that. We've met at other cons, hung out, had games together, gone to dinner, all kinds of stuff, right? And we were sitting there just kinda catching up, we got a game or 2 in. I think you were n I know Cole was in it, and I think you were actually right next to us while we were
I was
playing.
watching,
We were,
yeah.
Yeah.
we had made eye contact. You guys were about to get out of a game, and we were trying to
Sure.
call your group over. So while we were
But,
finishing this.
Yeah.
like, while we're doing that, at one point, Cole gets up, he moves on to his next pod, and, just, like, a fan of Joe's sat down and played a game with us, and then when we're done, him and his partner are like, "Hey, good catching up, we'll shoot you a text later if we decide to get dinner, blah, blah, blah," right? But the fact that he was friendly to me took this 4th person and, like, blew his pants clean off him because they're so it's like you were saying with Rachel Weeks, right? Like, or Post Malone. Like, it feels like you shouldn't be on the same level, but in a way, you're kinda on the same level with a lot of these people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, I feel like we're in such a niche community that like when you
Everybody
take
knows
like
each other in some way.
when you step back, yeah, when you step back, it's we're still kind of a small tight knit community. Um, quick shout out to Joe's partner,
Oh, Christian?
hilarious.
I love that guy.
Like I
Love that
was
guy.
like very funny, like very entertaining. It was a fun game to kind of watch and hang out for. But yeah, they were quite funny. I laughed a few times.
Yeah, Christian, his partner, is, like, the most unintentionally hilarious person you'll ever meet because he's just got such, like, an exuberant personality that you're laughing just by being around this guy. He's got, like, such an infectious kinda energy.
Yeah, yeah, I got onto that too, but yeah, they're cool. Shout out.
By the way, speaking of weird interactions at Command Fest, do you remember how we met you, by the way? The
Yes,
origin of Ken?
Because if you're talking about
yeah,
approachable, I mean, you are the
Yeah, yeah.
definition of approachable. We cold approached you guys. Granted, Corey had a bit of a previous connection with Josh via Twitter,
No,
so
it
I
was
think
it
there's
was
a.
via Ken.
Oh, it was
that was
okay, okay,
me.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Were
That
we
was awesome.
approachable? I felt bad because we kind of had to send you away because we were like, because this was Command Fest Orlando, June, I think it was
Yeah,
June.
June-ish, yeah.
Um, and so like prior to, I was kind of like, hey, I'm going. This is my first Command Fest. Like, love to like hang out, meet people. I was like, just set up my Twitter account. Like, I was just kind of getting back into being like more present and kind of in the thing. So, and he reached out. I was like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be there on Saturday. I was like, sweet, yeah, come say hi. And then, so that was the morning of, and like, we have friends from right near Tampa where y'all are, and like we were waiting for them, and they were just as you two were walking up and like introducing, we're like, oh hey, how's it going and stuff. Like they were coming in, like just walking through the doors, and we're like, like let's play a game later, and and then chaos ensued. It was like new Command Fest. It was Lord of the Rings stuff. So it was like like stimulus
Mhm,
everywhere. But then and like towards the end of the night, I was like, next thing we're out for dinner, it's just like you kind of get pulled everywhere, and like there's so much going on. And then I was like,
mhm.
let's sit down. We're playing a game right now, and we got a game in, and it was the funnest part of that Command Fest. Um,
Yeah, what's funny is, so we were walking over to the convention center, convention hall they were doing this in, and you had just posted, like, I think a photo from within your car, like, "Hey, on our way
Yep.
to Command Fest, can't wait to see you there." But it was a photo of yourself and Josh,
Yep.
and I didn't know who was who, so I was like, one of these
Oh,
2 is Ken." No clue who, because I'd never seen you before.
right.
And then I think Cole, if I remember, Cole was trolling around looking for games by just cold calling people at tables, and he
Cold calling.
Hassling
approached you
people
guys.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, cold calling. He
Yes.
approached you guys looking for a game, and you I don't think you sent us away. I think it was a pretty polite, like, "Hey, I've got friends coming, not you scrubs, get out of my face."
But we weren't even getting ready to play. We were just getting ready to meet them because we we see them every like couple months or so. And so we're
Sure.
like, yes, when we play, like we're gonna play a game today. And that's kind of like
Hmm.
the short term, like this is gonna happen today. We'll make it happen. We did.
Yeah, but what was funny is when you were like, "Hey, sorry," I didn't even connect the fact that I had just seen a photo of you until we got like 3 tables away, and I was like, somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind, this man looks familiar. And then
I
if I
have none
remember,
of
I
my
came back and I was like, "Is one of you kid?
yeah.
Who is it? Raise your
Yeah.
hand."
I have a face that can haunt people in the back of their minds.
Yeah, it's kept me
It's my
awake many a night.
superpower. Yeah, it was just kind of like a
um,
serendipity situation that we all kind of linked
yeah,
up when we did.
it's one of those like chance-based things because weirdly enough, a lot of the people I've connected with in the community, I also met at that Command Fest because we ran into Joe at that Command Fest. Well, kind of, sort of. He was there. No, he wasn't there. Beezy was there.
Right.
Giraffinette was there. We got a game in with her. John Plays Games was there. Like, kind of oddly enough, for whatever reason, we're like 3 weeks into making the podcast, go to this thing, and suddenly everybody who was there is now like my longest friend in the MTG community. None of which have invited me on a stream, by the way. So this is it's heresy, is what it is.
We don't do streams.
All right, I'll give you that.
We will have you on. Mark my word on this day.
I
On this.
promise, by the way, we didn't bring you on just to rail you about getting on your stream.
I mean,
But I
that'd be
think
kind
at
of
this point we're
funny.
gonna it's an hour and a half of why am I not on here?
Right.
But I think at this point we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, guys. We're gonna grab some water. When we come back, I promise we'll get back into the gameplay stream of things. So we talked about getting guests, YouTube versus Twitch, how to get started, and I think when we get back, we need to talk about how to stand out from the crowd because, as Ken noted at the top of this, it's a very saturated market. So we need to talk about how you can be at the pinnacle of that market by stepping over Ken on your way to the top. But we'll grab a quick break and we will see you in just a minute. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We are back from our break. We are hanging out with Ken and that other guy who keeps popping up every week. But
That's
we're
me.
talking about it's him. But we're talking about making your own gameplay series, how to get started, kind of choosing what medium you want to go on, and how to accumulate guests and just have goodwill going into all this. So I think we've talked a little bit about the technical aspects of planning out your editing. Do you want to do more of a live format via Twitch? Do you want to do more of a I don't want to say polished. I think polished is maybe the poor word for it, but a more produced version on YouTube. But now we need to talk about the fact that there is just a lot of you guys, and maybe after listening to this, there's going to be a lot more. So we need to talk about how to stand out from the crowd. Uh, Ken, we're going to lead off with you here. So, good, clean commander. How do you guys like? Are you planning your episodes around themes? Are you trying to come up with a unique twists? Do you make sure the decks line up? Like, how are you separating yourself from the crowd?
Um, a little of all of it, I think. We are like to play around with the idea of like kind of having a shtick or a theme to an episode. Like this will be probably in the early, like January, maybe
Oh,
February.
oh, we're getting a
Um,
scoop.
yeah, we did the name game, so we all built decks with a commander who shared the same name as us. So
Mhm.
that was a lot of fun. That was kind of like a, a deck building practice where you kind of you didn't really get a choice, so you had to really kind of work with what you got.
Yeah,
So
and you'll never guess who got Kenrith the Return King.
it wasn't Kenrith or King. I did not play Kenrith. I played Ken from Street Fighter,
Nice.
I mean,
who
in a way, he's a Return King.
kind of.
King of the courts, maybe?
But I still have that deck actually. It's gonna turn into a Narset deck because it's all about prowess. But anyways, um, yeah. So we do that, and then a lot of it just comes down to like what, like I kind of said before, it's very much about like the decks we've been working on recently, the decks we're excited about. It we try not to put too many constraints on it. Like we'll do themed episodes, we'll do episodes based on a new set, like we did when we were doing the face cams, which still I think might be my favorite episodes we've ever done. We did like back to back episodes of like team up. So it was all we
Mhm.
each picked one of the March of the Machine kind of team up commanders, and that was a blast. I had a lot of fun with that. But also we want to like not put too many constraints on it because a lot of the guests and a lot of even the people in our kind of small group, people aren't building like 30 decks a year, right? And like
Sure.
some people only have a handful, and like we never want to make somebody feel like they don't have a seat at the table, so to speak. So, it's very much like, Ash and I will always be bringing something we've been concocting, but otherwise, we always want somebody to feel like they can show up as long as the power level kind of meshes with everyone. Like, you know, roll up,
First of all, whoa,
play.
whoa, whoa, whoa. So you're talking power level, but I want you to know, in studying for these hard hitting questions, I watched Good Clean Commander, and I saw an episode. You had Zyra the Golden Sting,
Yes.
and I ca- I apologize, I don't remember her name, but to the bottom right corner, the turn player before you slamped down not one, not two, but three of the original dual lands. So power levels out the window at that point.
Yeah, Laura. Shout out, love Laura. Was playing her Rith the Awakened deck, and it was all old border cards that came out before a certain time. And I can't remember. It might have been when the Rith card came out, but it was the whole deck was cards from like the year 2000
Yeah.
before. I can't remember the stipulation, but it was all very old cards. And like we talked about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I have all the dual lands in here." But like
The
that's
theme.
fair. That's a part of it, right? Like it didn't feel unbalanced because while you were running these like crazy the best lands in the format, also
Mhm.
you were very limited on what removal and like what you could do. So it
Sure,
it
sure.
it ended up playing very like fluidly with everyone else. I think uh I ended up like aristocrating out the table thanks to her commander making so many saprolings. So it's kind of like the I would say power level isn't just about playing specific cards. There's kind of a little more nuance to it where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, if you're playing these crazy good cards, but you're playing within this other limitation, then sometimes it kind of balances each other out. So that
I
might
don't
be a hot take, but that's my opinion.
but I don't understand what you're saying because if I have a deck, let's be upfront about it. I disagree because if you have a deck that has all these dual lands, it's a 7. And if I have all these non-dual lands, it's still a 7. So I don't understand how you think there's, any difference in power level because it's still a 7.
I mean, I don't know if the dual lands really bump up the power level
I
that
don't think
much.
they
Do
do.
they?
And I would
It's
say
still a
your
7.
same question, Corey, although like I think you're being rhetorical about, all decks are sevens. But I do think like if you took a precon and you swapped
Mhm.
three basic lands for the
Sure.
three, dual
It's
lands you
still a
could put
7.
into that deck hasn't changed in power level at all. It's maybe
Yeah, it's gone from a
increased in
7 to a 7.
consistency. Ever so slightly, but it's those cards aren't. There might be a more of a sign of a large and wide collection than like a slap down, beat down Rith deck.
I thought you were gonna
Yeah,
say they're a sign of a large and wide wallet.
Right.
because
I mean, could be, but honestly, I think, especially dual lane specifically, I think like I do not associate those with high power level at all.
sure.
I associate those with people who've, for the most part, at least my experience, are people who've been in this game for a long time,
Mhm.
who have somehow, whether it was like 20 years or 10 years or however long, like have these lands. And like that Rift deck was so cool because it was all these old cards and like it's kind of like it was kind of like a time machine going back, and then back then those lands were available, and yeah, like Cole said, I don't really associate the dual lands specifically with like a higher power level. Like I still like a um ancient tomb, like all
Sure.
any like fast mana. Like I would associate that more with power level because dual lands, at the end of the day, that land is doing nothing different from this basic, right? Except maybe
Yeah, I
dropping
mean I mean,
color.
obviously I'm joking, but for me, and this will probably be my actual hot take, I would say the fetches to me are probably more powerful than the duels because I'm fixing the mana that's out there, whereas if I just pull a Bayou off the top of my deck, I'm only getting those 2 colors, which I may or may not need in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, I fully agree. I think the fetches. The nice thing about the fetches, I think they're accessible. Uh, like obviously comparatively, they're still not. They're still like
Sure.
$12. Some of them are even more. I know the Modern Horizons 2 ones are like from like 12 to like $16, which is nice because that's a little more like if you're gonna splurge on a card, that's a decent card to get.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I mean,
I
they're
fully
definitely
agree.
more
I
yeah, they're
fully
definitely more
agree.
accessible than, say, an OG dual land just because it's not getting reprinted.
Right. Also, hot take. I cannot stand when somebody runs a dual land, but one of the colors is not one of the colors of the deck. Like I know
Yes. Yes.
they're not assigned. Like you can, as long as you can fetch up,
You
you
mean a
can even
fetch
put one that's
land? You said
yeah.
dual land. Okay, but
Oh,
like,
sorry,
Oh, yeah.
fetch land. Yes.
Yeah, if
Um,
you're running like a Bloodstained Mire and you're in red but not black, I hate you. I hate you to no end. I do the same thing with all the fetches. It's like, no, if I'm in Is It, it's only gonna be the Is It fetch land. I don't care if it summons a mountain in some other color or an island. No, I just want to
well,
see this one.
all right. Well, I'm sorry, but you guys you're this is a witch hunt because I do exactly that. What about your landfall decks? What about your Crucible of World decks that want
Then
to
you
replay
run
fetches?
Evolving Wilds like a man, and you
I have a very like solid stance when it comes to my deck building and using fetch lands. Is if it's 3 colors, yep, I'll usually maybe run 2, depending what the colors are and depending how much the lands are if we don't already have them.
Mhm.
If it's 2 color and I have one laying around, I'll throw it in. But like if it's a 2 color deck and I have to buy one, I don't bother because you don't need it. You're gonna get your colors anyway. That's just two
Sure.
colors. I have a Tom Bombadil deck that's 5 colors, and I run 5 fetch lands, and they're the 5 least expensive fetch lands.
You
So
didn't want 10 fetches, 10 pain
oh
land or 10
no.
shocks, 10
I do
10
have 10. I
duels.
have all 10 triumphs. So like that
Mm.
was that was my splurge for the deck. It's sagas. They're not
Now,
expensive.
I have a quick question for you, Ken. Or it might not be quick, but how do you guys feel about like proxy usage? Like especially, you're talking about dual lands, like maybe I'm building a deck and I put the dual lands in for the theme or because it's all old bordered cards without dropping, $1,000 on a fringe deck.
Uh, are you talking in the confines of like content creating or like just playing in general?
More so in the confines of content creating. Like
Content,
if you're
yeah.
playing with somebody and they're, if they let you know ahead of time that they're, running a proxy deck, or like, are you guys open to that, or is there, because proxies are usually associated with like, oh, mana crypt, mana vault, trying to, but like, not that's not
Right.
always the case. I think a lot of people play responsibly with those.
Yeah, like fully like, it plain magic is expensive. High level, casual level, it is an expensive, and like we never want to like put the feeling or put on the pressure of like somebody being like I can't, like I need to go buy these cards for this.
Mhm.
We and you'll see in some of our games we'll have people playing straight from Oxfield. because sometimes it's a brand new commander and they just don't have the time, they don't have the money, they don't have the interest in it enough to like go through and actually buy all the cards. So um, like
Yeah.
no issue whatsoever. I mean, anything like if it's um, as long as you're not like if you're proxying specifically to like play a higher power level and all of a sudden there's an imbalance there, then that's something we would discuss if it came up. It never has, but otherwise, like at the end of the day, we're just playing this game, and like there really is no difference between like if you're just proxying this card. And like there's 1,000 different reasons people proxy. Some people keep them in a binder. Some people just don't want to spend the money on the card. So like no discrimination whatsoever, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter,
Well,
really.
and I think too, like from a content creation standpoint, proxying can also take care of some timing issues. You talked about like new commanders and stuff. So if you're just getting into doing gameplay content or even magic content in general, I think everybody kind of falls into this loop of chasing the next product that's upcoming, which can be good from a hey, you're catching what everyone's interested to in, but it can also be bad because then you kind of tend to suffer like more burnout, more like FOMO, stuff like that. So at the end of the day, like you're not going to be the first channel that has like all four of the brand new precons because guess what? Bigger channels that have closer connections are getting those weeks before they hit the shelves. But
Yep.
proxying could actually be a way for you to get those cards, after they're revealed, maybe getting a game in with, hey, this is the brand new commander that comes out next week. It might not look as shiny and awesome as coming out of the box, but that is an option there too.
Absolutely. And you can like, you know, there's whole avenues of like, you know, um, uh, like homemade commanders and like, there's quite a big community of people who like come up and brew their own commanders and like come up with who the character is and how the card plays and like there's
Mhm.
really no confines to what you can like we kind of talked about earlier about trying to kind of as far as getting that traction you kind of want to try and at least hit things that people are interested in, but also like if you want to like you want to have a channel where you play these decks with these commanders that each person like made up and like created themselves, like that's cool, and that's a cool unique angle that I don't think anyone's done yet. I could be wrong. Apologies if
So
I am,
so
but
weirdly enough, I actually had an idea for a gameplay series on this, like way back in the day, and you maybe we'll revisit it at some point. There was going to be custom commander, where it was hey 99 cards that are legitimate cards, and then the face commander was something customized, like hey we're going into the holidays, maybe it's four different holiday themed
right.
cards. The issue I had, and if maybe someone smarter than me has figured it out, was more of a balancing issue.
Yeah.
Where hey, how do you prevent that one person from making like, oh, it's a zero drop that does all these crazy things, it's keyword soup,
Well,
and
you'd vet it. You'd have it all be approved because, like, if I look at your zero drop with like 10 keywords, I say, no, we're not playing that. Go back to the drawing board. Make it at least a
Right.
one
but
drop and reduce 9 of
but
those
Santa
keywords.
has all these powers.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think too, like how big is the team at Wizards who like vet these cards and
Mhm.
do the work? Obviously you're not going to get that same like quality control, but that's just something you would need to like, you would need everyone would need to come with their creation and like compare and
Yeah.
test, test the games, play some, see how it feels, adjust accordingly. So like it's doable, absolutely. You just need to kind of like, have a little
Mhm.
diligence with it as far as like evening out
So
all the kinks.
outside of like picking more unique commanders or maybe picking something that's off the beaten path a little bit, do you think there's value if you today were gonna restart your good clean commander? Do you think there's value in doing things that aren't necessarily strictly commander? Like some creators do plane chase, some creators do strictly two-headed giant, or they do like house rules and things of that nature.
Yeah, we actually, I mean, we did a episode that came out a little while ago now for the Doctor Who, and it was Plane Chase. It was just playing the precons out the box, um,
Mhm.
and we played with the Plane Chase, and we kind of formatted it in a way on spell table, and like we even did a mop-up episode discussing Plane Chase and kind of how to get into it, how it works, and like we even talked there about like it could be a fun angle to add to a game that would otherwise be just a standard game. So yeah, we're totally open and kind of playing with that and trying different angles. We've also done like um uh we posted, and I think we'll do like a few more here and there, is like CEDH games, like Ashley's first CEDH game. And then I think the next one they want to have me and come up with my first CEDH deck
Mhm.
and like play it. So it always, like, it doesn't hurt to like diversify and kind of have different angles and something that's unique. I think talked earlier, like John from Chaotic Commander, like the whole thing's based around these kind of like, I can't remember what he calls them specifically, but he kind of has this like,
Yeah, he's got these weird one-off rule kind of things.
yeah, and like you get two unique rules for the game, and that's just how the game operates. And I think that's a
Sometimes
cool.
they're utterly game breaking, and then other times they don't get used once.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been on that stream twice, and I've had very good luck with both the rules that we got. But yeah, like you know it's fun, and it kind of adds a layer of creativity and uniqueness to it that I think a lot of people want and like strive for in the kind of oversaturated community. So like, if you have a cool, fun idea, try it, and like it could catch on. It could be the next thing, right? That's how Commander was created. EDH was just like this kind of niche format that like judges from the tournaments would play kind of on their off time, and like now it's this like format. It's
That's
this staple
essentially
of
the
like,
face of Magic now.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, now this is the dreaded word that every creator has ever heard. Algorithm. Now, when you're looking at those kind of things, I mean, do you factor the algorithm into, like, just for you, do you factor the algorithm in at all for your content or your planning?
I think the algorithm more falls into smaller details, thumbnails, titles, posting
Mhm.
times, posting dates.
Sure.
Those,
Consistency.
yeah, those kind of like smaller things. I think that plays into more. It doesn't necessarily dictate, like, well, that's a lie too. Because like I said, we kind of bounced from like invoice games to voiceover games, and we kind of switched back because we kind of found one was doing better than the other. But like, you can't really let that fully lead you, and following the algorithm can be like a path for disaster because that can just end in a spiral. And the nice
Mhm.
thing I think with Ash and I is like we're very good at kind of balancing each other out. Like one can get like lost in the numbers, and the other one's like, hey, but look, we're like consistent and we're like building this community. And then like it could switch. That person one day is like, oh my god, I don't know the numbers, or is this not doing well? Like, do we need to like make a big change? And the other one's like, no, we got like we got this. We're still figuring out our feet, and
Mhm.
like we're doing nothing wrong. So it I would say let that stuff play into like the smaller tweaks, but like don't let it like loom over your content creating. Otherwise, you're just gonna it's gonna make it a lot less fun.
Yeah, I like, speaking for us, because we don't do, obviously, like, we've covered this, but we don't do gameplay. But just for the podcast, I mean, timing is the biggest thing with the algorithm for us. So a podcast that releases at, we release at 5 a.m. on Fridays, that tends to do better than when we were initially coming out with episodes. We were releasing like 5 p.m. because we were like, oh, we're gonna hit Friday Night Magic crowd, blah blah blah. But that's not when people are listening to that content. They're waiting for their morning commute, stuff like that.
Right.
So I do think timing plays a role into it, and probably length as well, especially on YouTube, because they will push like, hey, today we want to do 10-minute videos, and tomorrow we want hour-long content that no one's gonna click away from.
Yeah, it's like the YouTube algorithm is fickle, and it is a Like I like to say I'm a bit of a YouTube historian just because I've been around for so long and I've watched kind of how things change and following the patterns and seeing it, and it's like it's kind of in a way consistently inconsistent because it's always changing, right? Like one
Mhm.
video can break the mold and now that is the norm, and like it's just so fast. And yeah, it I've seen, like, non-magic related, I've seen YouTube channels crumble over the stresses of algorithm and the numbers. And it's sad, and it's like the worst fate because, like, you know, uh,
Yeah. I think the
it's
weird thing too is, at least for us, like, so we upload on multiple platforms. I think there's value in knowing what each platform kind of wants, because if you're an Instagram influencer, I mean, what does well on Instagram is not going to do well on YouTube or on TikTok or on those different things. So we'll have episodes where you look on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, stuff like that, and it's doing just monster numbers. And then you swap over to YouTube and it's like, oh, we had 12 views on this, period. But then on Spotify, it's, 100, like a couple hundred. And we've had the flip where, oh, two people listen to this on Spotify for whatever reason, but it's at 450 views on YouTube. So sometimes just knowing like what topics or what content pops can benefit you as well.
yeah, it's kind of a weird balance of reaching out and kind of like getting your feet out there, but also not overextending and then kind of reaching too far. It's such a
Hmm.
balance. And like we're no experts. We're figuring it out as we go. So like
Sure.
it's just a constant ever changing uh uh landscape.
What do you mean you're figuring out? Like, I thought you were. Are we not interviewing Mr. Beast right now, Cole? I thought he'd figured it out.
No, Mr. Beast is next week's guest.
Oh, okay, okay. Oof, oof, oof.
I'm Mr. Least. Um that was bad. I'm sorry.
We don't accept
No, no,
that
that.
kind of self-depreciating humor on this podcast. You're too
Mhm.
nice for that.
All right, so I think how we can wrap into this one. One last question, then we'll move to question of the week, card of the week. Ken, Good Clean Commander 2024. What is on the table? Do you have any spoilers for us? What are you guys working on heading into the new year? You got good goals? You got good, clean gameplay?
I will extend out um and just maybe give a forecast of what the channel, the MTG
Sure.
channel in general. Um, we'll be starting the new season of Good Clean Commander. So we've got like some fun, super exciting games coming down the road with that. We're going to be not playing into, we're going to be kind of like branching more. My kind of solo series is still going to kind of dive a little more into lore and kind of cards mechanics. Actually, and I'm going to give a bit of a teaser with my card of the week. Um, but and then we also, like, we do the historic brawls, kind of like the anchor of the channel. It's kind of where the channel started, and so we have that going. We're just kind of like, we've gotten the stage where, okay, um we're both part of the channel now. We've made this big leap, and now we gotta like have fun and like play around and experiment. We have like documents of like all kinds of series content idea we're trying to do, and we're just trying to kind of like, I would say 2024 is going to be a lot of experimenting, a lot of kind of like getting our groove and kind of figuring out what we want to do. And I think we can do that thanks to series like Good Clean Commander, Historic Brawl, and now this new kind of mini docu video essay series. So
Mhm.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of change. It's going to be a lot of like fun, new, exciting things, and it's going to be a lot of like trial and error. And that's mostly on my end because,
Yeah, and I think speaking for me, and I'll even say I'll speak for Cole on it too.
Thanks.
Um, but speaking for both of us, I think we're both excited for where you guys go in 2024. I know that with yourself, with Ashley, like, it's a solid team. You're both very fun loving, outgoing, just great people to kind of have around. Yeah, so I think the two of you guys just make like a solid team. You're both very outgoing, fun-loving, accepting the community. So I think we're both excited to see where you guys go into 2024. But that being said, guys, we're gonna hop into question of the week, card of the week, and then we're gonna head on out of here. All right, guys. So question of the week. I tried to get Ashley to provide a rip roaring question of the week to grill Ken, but she was too nice and she ghosted me. So instead,
And the
we
question
have
is,
this
why
one
did she
coming.
ghost you? No.
Yeah, exactly. Why you need to get her to listen to this episode just so I can ask her the question of the week. Why did she ghost me? Actually, my phone's turned off while we record this, so she might have responded at some point in the
Right.
last
She
hour.
Yeah, she's got two Discords. One that is like only when she's doing magic stuff at her computer, and the other one is like linked to her phone, I think. So you probably just messaged the one that she is only
You know
on when she's
why?
like doing magic stuff.
You know why he's a good co-host? Because he just jumped in front of the bus for her. What a guy.
No, I just pushed the
But
bus out of her way.
yeah. Gently nudged her back onto the sidewalk. But the actual question of the week comes from Luca. So thank you, Luca, for reaching out. And Luca's question is: are cantrips worth running in decks? Why or why not?
More like Ken trips.
And trips. Yes, but it's
But no.
it depends. Yes,
Situational.
but no. So I always like to think cantrips are great, but those cantrips, like you can't just put opt in every deck. You can put opt in every deck, and opt
Well, every blue deck.
will never underperform in any deck. I like to think of cantrips are little nudges of like whatever your commander's doing, kind of whatever the theme of the deck or the synergy is,
Mm.
your cantrips should kind of just nudge in that direction. I think one example that I'm going to use right now, because spoiler alert, I'm working on like 1,000. I've been so busy. I've been like slowly building like 6 decks at the same time, just like kind of bouncing intermittently, like during my off time. But I've been kind of
Mm.
playing around with I think it's Wida Trainer Prodigy. It's Wayta. I think it's Wida or Wada.
Yeah,
Oh,
Wada,
the
the
like
fight commander
fighting Panharmout.
And right,
out
Okay.
of
yeah,
Pant
it's
Laza.
the
Mm.
deck is all about enrage, right? And doubling kind of essentially it's doubling enrage triggers. It's doubling like damage triggers, but and this one I have like I threw in a spike field hazard. It's a 1 mana. It's one of the MDFCs. It's just like a 1 red mana. It deals 1 damage to target. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die, exile it. So first of all, MDFCs are a whole other thing. I think always just run them because they take up land slot,
Why not?
in my opinion. But this is a little 1 mana cantrip, but like you think in this deck, you have your commander, you have anything with enrage out, you're triggering that enrage, you're getting good value out of it. The same goes with like flick a coin, I think, which I don't know if it counts. Does
Mm.
3 mana count as a cantrip? It's kind of like
It is draw a card as its last line, so we'll
yeah.
say yes in this case, yeah.
Well, actually, it doesn't. Oh no, it does say draw card. So it's
It
a three
does.
mana, deals 1 damage to any target, create a treasure, draw a card. I'm like, okay, this is like like this doesn't go in most decks, but like this one, okay, it's trigger an enrage, possibly double that enrage trigger if you have your commander out,
Mm.
create a treasure, and draw a card. Like I think if you're running cantrips, just have them kind of be a little synergistic and a little like just a little like tip into whatever the synergy you're trying to go for is. If you're going for like a spell slinger, then yeah, pick your cantrips that are going to help kind of get those spells in your hand. If you're going for an aristocrats, do a cantrip that kind of like plays into that. And I think that's a good way to kind of keep you from just putting the same staple cantrips that go in every deck and kind of gets you thinking about it. So you're still using them, but you're kind of tailoring them a little more to what you're playing.
No, for sure. I think if you're thinking about cantrips and the idea of their card draw, they're really not because there's not card advantage in them. So yeah, I completely agree. I think you have to look at one of two things. One, do you care what the first line of text is? For example, like expediates one you see a lot. That's 1 mana, give creature haste, draw a card. Do you care that that creature has haste, or do you care that crash throughs giving you trample till end of turn? And then the other thing is, are you in a synergy that just cares about casting a lot of spells? If you're in a storm deck, yeah, jam it full of cantrips. If you're in like a Magecraft, Veyrin, kind of double trigger thing, then you care about just getting a quantity of spells out there, and then drawing the cards is fueling you to get more cantrips to snowball.
Right.
But if you don't have those synergies, like don't play it just because it says the word draw a card, because then you're not really drawing or doing anything with it.
Well,
Yeah, I think that this can all be summed up. Sorry, Cole. I was just going to say is
Yeah.
to answer that question. Yes, the first line of text should matter, and if it doesn't matter, you don't need to run it.
well, and I do think that there's something to be said about like a cantrip, maybe not something that is drawing you a single card and not doing much else, or has like kind of an unrelated effect, but something like brainstorm can be a really helpful piece of like
Mhm.
card selection rather than, card advantage that later, early in the game or later in the game can kind of smooth out your gameplay. But like you said, Ken, if you have too many and your brainstorm reveals a ponder, an opt, and like a dig through
Preordained.
time or something preordained, sure, you're not really getting anywhere. So you need to have like a good mix of gas, but like nothing feels better. Like I'd rather draw a brainstorm late game than a land, even a dual land at that.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing too is just like 100 card format is not a lot of cards, and there's always cuts, and there's always is always things that as you get down to your last 5 cards you have to cut, and so like, is it worth taking up a space that another card could take up? And that just comes down to you, your play group, like so many variables. But hopefully we're able to at least like guide or give a insight into that.
Yeah, I think we hit, at least when I read the question, I think we hit all the valid points, which are find synergies that aren't just tap one blue mana, throw this in my graveyard and draw another card.
Right.
That's question of the week. Hey, thank you, Luca, for giving us a question of the week. If you guys want to leave a question of the week, you can always drop it down in the comments. You can shoot it over to us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, any place you can stalk us or find us. Again, scrub the episode and Cole's address will be hidden in it as always.
Like
So
usual.
you can also, like usual, so if you want to airdrop him your question of the week, you can wrap it around a brick and throw it through a window. Any of those good things, we'll get to it. Question of the week. So now, card of the week, as is tradition. I say that two guests into the series. Uh, Ken will be providing our card of the week as our guest of the week.
You didn't tell me how to prepare a card. No, I'm kidding. I
I
changed my
love
card
ops.
like midway through. It's actually by you. No. Y'all like lore? Like, do you like dig into that? Is that
Ugh.
do you like eat that stuff
Ugh.
up? Do you get any? No.
Ugh.
Okay,
I
that might
sure
be
I mean,
do.
like lore win, right? I love lore win.
right. No,
Yeah.
not Lorwyn. Zendikar. The card I want to highlight. It's not really a good card, really at all. It's good if you're running a colorless deck. Great card, actually. I want to highlight, and I want everybody who is listening to this, if they can. Um, if you're driving, don't. But I want you to look up
Wait,
this
people
card.
listen to this?
Okay, well, if we get past that stage, look this card up because you need to have the visuals and kind of get the full story for this card. The card I chose is Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. I'll read out what the card does. It's a land. It taps for colorless, or it taps for 2 colorless, and you can spend this mana only to cast colorless spells. Activate only if you control 7 or more land. So it's like a Temple of the False card that's more niche but better.
Yeah.
So if y'all can even you watching it, or not you watching it, Cole and Cory, if you can pull this card up, because the flavor text and the art in this card has sent me through the best rabbit hole of magic lore and story that I will be diving into I'm going to do a video fully based on this card because I think it's so cool and interesting. So I'm going to read out the flavor text first. So
Please
it says,
do.
the gods known to the merfolk as Ula, Emiria, and Kazi were nothing more than false memories of a monstrous trinity, the Eldrazi titans, Ulamog, Emrakul, and Kozilek. So everyone knows Emiria Retreat. Everyone knows Emiria. Everyone recognizes Emiria, right? You've heard it here and there.
Mhm.
Associated with angels, Zendikar. Emiria is just a twisted memory of Emrakul. the Titans like are so cosmic and so all knowing and powerful that they're able to like warp this image and create these three worship gods that are like false deities that represent these three like horrors. And like if you look at
Mhm.
the art, you can even see it in the art. It's the three
Emeria
gods
looks like Emrakul.
depicted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Myria takes the shape of Emrakul with the tentacles. Kazi has the crown that Dupler replicates kind of what Kozilek's head looks like, and then Ula has the head shape and the like kind of tentacles in the form of
Ulamog.
Ulamog. I think that's
Wow.
so cool, and like
Yeah.
such a like I'm sure a lot of people know this, but a lot of people also, they've seen, Amiria, Angel, what's the land, uh, Amiria, Skyruin, like all these things, but it's like, the thing that all these creatures, all these beings are worshiping is like, it's freaking Emrakul, and that's like so cool. So, this card just like encapsulates the just kind of like the mind blowingness of like, whoa, wait, what's happening, and like kind of twisting people's perspective and kind of knowledge on the game. So I think it's cool, and mechanically, it's fine, great in a colorless deck. But I just think like the lore, the story, and like even the art to tie it together, I think is so good. It's what
Well, like,
gets me excited about the game.
no, I think it's a great pick. It's also kind of like a cool deep cut that a lot of people may have never seen this card. I know this was my first time actually like I've seen the card, but I don't think I've ever actually analyzed the flavor text and the art before. So
It
I like
was
it.
Josh got me into it because like Josh is a lore buff guy, and like the
Mhm.
Eldrazi Titans, like that happened a while ago now, and like Josh like has known this, and we like talk about it, and like it was just kind of like such a whoa, like that's such a cool thing. I'm doing an entire video essay on this card, and that will be in the works for early 2024. But yeah, just the cool things that kind of get you excited and kind of add that layer to the game that you can't get elsewhere.
Well, now we have something to look forward to for early 2024.
Yes, this will be my
Also,
passion project over
also
the next while.
2024, Modern Horizons 3 is teasing the return of the Eldrazi.
Being a Zuladoc deck owner now and having my Eldrazi deck, my heart just I hope that we get even I don't know if we're gonna get new versions of them. Well, I'll take a reprint. I'll take something else that like incorporates them because that's probably my favorite um like
Mhm.
the storyline is the Eldrazi Titans.
Yeah, and I think it's high time for the return because we revisited the Brothers' War last year. This year was obviously Phyrexia. So now it seems time to bring them back so that in 2025, bam, return of Bolas. That way
Right.
we just have the whole cycle again.
Over again. No, interesting that you said high time because high time and high tide and high tide moon Emrakul. Emrakul is stuck in the moon in Innistrad and the time.
Oh, the
Yeah, it's
strings.
like
He's got the strings on the
Oh, come on,
board.
be in there. Did you know pyramids were built by the aliens?
the
Oh,
Eldrazi.
wait, we weren't talking about that? Yeah. All right, guys. So I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. Ken, if the people would like to find you, where can they follow Ken at?
You can't. You'll never find me. You can find us on YouTube. The channel is MTG EMPTYG. Search up. We'll be right there. On Twitter, you can find me at the KenEDH. It is THE, like the KenEDH. I tweet on there here and there. So come say hi. And that's about it. You can find me at my house, but don't come here.
His address will be right underneath Cole's. So scrub even closer. um, yeah, you can find Cole, by the way, at loveandmana.mtg. He likes to stand outside of his large glass window and stare at people while menacingly holding Ixalan decks I believe it was that the last one.
It was a box topper, and I don't just stand out there. I do a little dance too. So check it out and drop me a follow and a like, and many more videos like that to come. So get ready.
All right. And you can find me at Sleevecard on all those places. I will also do a little dance, but you may or may not catch it on camera. You can also follow the podcast at UrCastPod, or you can reach out to us directly at contact.urcast@gmail.com. So feel free to slap a like, hit the follow button, all that good stuff. Also, thank you guys because we just hit at the end of 2023. Spotify just did their little release for like Unwrapped, I guess it's called, or Wrapped or something for the end of the year, and we are in the top 30% of all podcasts listened to on Spotify for whatever that number is worth to you. So thank you for making that possible, and thank you for making it to the end of the episode. Have yourselves a magical Friday, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.